Everyone, in today's tactics video I'm going to review the recent balanced data slate for Astra Militarum and how it impacts us in the meta. We're about 4 or 5 months into 10th edition and we've got our first balanced data slate, and personally I was very excited to see this because whilst I am enjoying the game of 10th edition, I find the random tactical cards very fun to play, probably in the most unbalanced it's been from a meta point of view in a long time. I've been playing since the back end of 8th and this feels really out compared to the back end of 9th edition. So this video I'll go through the balanced data set itself, all the point changes for Astra Militarum, but first I just wanted to discuss some statistical aspects, which is always very important. Is that if you look at 40kstats.goonhammer.com, they have Astra Militarum placed in a very different position to what GW sort of think we're at. So Goonhammer, or 40k Stats, uses the tabletop battle apps, which is an app I use. And the thing is anybody who uses that app and registers as Astra Militarum is contributing to this data. So that's going to be everybody who plays in a tournament through to casual games with their pals at a house or a hobby store. Now, the GW data, I don't know where this is from, and the reason why I'm calling it the difference here is that when you look at Astra Militarum, a 43% win rate is we are towards the bottom of the table, obviously, but we're doing better than a lot of other armies here. So GW does obviously recognise in this article, which was back in August, 10th of August, is that the top armies are doing ridiculously powerfully, like Ardari obviously, while some of the bottom armies are doing terribly. So almost like two completely different games. Now, Astra Militarum, 43% win rate and probably the 10th best performing faction. Now when we go to 40k stats, you can see we've got a 41% win rate, so not much difference there. But we're actually the 4th worst performing faction. So the reason I call this out is this is a much more negative picture than this one here. So if they base the decisions on this data here, and again I don't know what the source of the information is here, versus this here, we're going to be in quite a different sort of spot as far as the expectations are concerned. So I want to call that out because as we'll go through the balanced data set and the point changes, and you look at some of the other armies out that have changed, it's going to be quite indicative where I think we're going to sort of be in the next couple of months. One positive element I want to call out here is actually when you rank this by number of games played in all of 10th edition, what's nice to see actually is that Astra Militarum, despite a very weak win rate in this data, it's actually still very popular. So we've got 5,200 games played, actually sort of like upper mid as far as games are played. So it is showing that Astra Militarum still's got a lot of like fans out there who enjoy playing the game with their favourite army, so it's nice to see. A bit of a positive one there. Okay, now on to the balanced data slate and then the points. So the key headline for the balanced data slate for Astra Militarum is there's no new rules. No new rules or no rules which have been removed. Other armies are quite different. Now, there are some core rule changes, and I've honestly had to watch a couple of other YouTube videos to interpret this because personally I find still GW rules, you have to almost be a lawyer, like in inverted commas, to understand it. But there is some key stuff here which is worth calling out, and they don't really affect us as far as us doing the damage, it's us receiving the damage. So now dev wounds, basically now, they firstly can't splash. So my understanding was previously, if someone did 12 devastating wounds to you via some Ardari Fate dice, it would hit one model in your unit and carry across, splash across into other models. That now doesn't occur, where basically you can't splash those wounds across, which means if someone does 12 devastating wounds, one model in your squad of say 5 Bulgrim or 6 Bulgrim dies out, as opposed to it splashing over and over again. Now that again for us is just we receive the damage. We don't give that many dev wounds at all, I think. But that's a key call out. And I think there's also an interaction with the Adeptus Custodes also throws out their save as well. I think their Feel No Pain against mortal wounds, that's affected as well. So that's one to call out. Now the next one, again, I read this initially and I was like, what on earth are you talking about? But I had to listen to some other YouTube channels. Basically what this is, and a good probably example is they actually call it the Calidus Assassin, and also actually Asala Creed's ability where she can allow you to use a stratagem for free. Now, the stratagem has to either be named for this to work, i.e. say Overwatch, or it's what they call a battle tactic stratagem. So I'm sure you've seen across all the stratagems, say for example this one here, the red ones are strategic ploy stratagems, and I think the green ones a battle tactic stratagem. So what it actually means for us is, for Asala Creed's ability to work to give you the free stratagem per battle round, it now has to be a battle tactic stratagem, to which the crucial one for us is Fields of Fire. So that is now a bit of a change, that anything which allows you to get CP to do a stratagem for free or cheaper, it now has to be either named specifically on the data sheet, i.e. say Overwatch, or it's a battle tactic stratagem. So the main, and again, if you know any other instances impacts Astra Militarum, please tell me, because I love to learn, because I'm only one brain. So that's one key one. It also affects, say for example, the Calidus Assassin, where she basically can make a stratagem that costs more, additional CP for the entire game. So now it's just battle tactic stratagems. Okay, another quick one is Overwatch. Now you must be able to see the unit which moves. Which is great. I think it was a bit absurd that you could not, well, it was mainly for us, well, also for us, but you could have a manticore 24 inches away, can't see the target moves, you could fight Overwatch. Do you do much damage? Probably not, but still, I think it's a good removal, that basically you have to be able to see the target. Does that make sense? And then Insane Bravery, this basically means you can only use it once per game now. So Battle Shock, as we all know, is not turning out to be the big sort of end game thing it's meant to be, but now the fact you only use the stratagem Insane Bravery once per game is actually quite powerful. And also the key step is it has to be in your command phase, and you've got to basically choose to do it before you roll the test. So my understanding would be basically you got to declare it, and then even if you pass a Battle Shock test with a dice roll, if you roll the dice, you still have used it once per game. Next is then, now again, no expert here, but basically towering models, the ridiculous nature where they could basically hover over, stand behind a building, be able to see down into it. That's now gone. They can basically tow into terrain, and then they can see out of that terrain. I'm explaining this very poorly, but it now basically makes the towering keyword less powerful than it was, which was absurd. One of you commented on a post I said about, I think the Baneblade. Big models like our Titanic models might have a bit of a weird interaction, so if you're there, please put it in the comment again, because I've missed it, but thanks for doing so. Alright, now let's get on to the other armies. I'll be very quick, because I only really know much about Custodes. What they've done with Custodes is basically people will take in big bricks of 10 Custodian Guardians, which are like a lot of dudes to deal with, and they can take a max of 5. So gone are the days of spamming big blobs of Custodian Guardians, which were winning tournaments. Mechanicus have got a bit of a glow up. They've got some increased invulnerable saves, I think, and some armor saves. Will it help? I don't know. Aldari, now, in a most positive sense, I play Aldari. My brother-in-law plays hi Ash, if you're there. Plays Aldari, and Phantasm is the most frustrating stratagem, so they can basically, for 1 CP, in your movement phase, end of your movement phase, move a unit. They just move the unit. So you could be setting up a charge, they just move the unit, and you're like, okay, great. Now it's only infantry units. That's a good restriction. Will it be fundamentally enough to sort of pull Aldari back in? I don't think so, but as you can see, it's only one change to their overall rule set, but where they've made the pain is basically the point costs, and from what I've read, it doesn't go far enough, is some people's opinion. Other one I'll quickly, so Death Guard, as I understand it, this looks very good. You can basically manipulate enemy units, Blitzscope skill, their save, the leadership or OC value, so it actually is a much more powerful goblin than what it currently is. The rest of the armies I don't know too well, so Death Watch impacts a stratagem which they can only use it on bolt weapons, some fancy like shooter rounds, and then I believe Genestealer Cults have been pulled back a fair bit, and likewise Grey Knights, Imperial Knights, and Legs of Votan have got a bit of a glow up. A key one for us, just because we don't like anti-infantry indirect, is Desolation Marines, which are the Nerf guns or the T-shirt guns. You can only bring blobs of 5, not 10. So we're not here about these other armies, but a bit of a feel. It looks like it's been a bit of a, quite an effective use of this. From what I'm hearing, Custodian's been hit very hard overall, but they're still going to be very, very good. So, okay, with that in mind, now let's get on to Guard. Onto the points. So as I said, I typed all these out, spent the time typing every single one, and I've grabbed the pre and post points, and you can clearly see once I zoom in nice, make the text nice and big, is pre, post, the point changed, and the percentage changed. Always conceptualize the absolute, is it a big or small change? I've then conditionally formatted it so dark green is good, and then if there's any reds, which there are a couple, that's gone up. So the overarching statement is, broadly speaking, Forge War units have been untouched. There's two key exceptions to that rule, but broadly speaking, Forge War have been untouched. Across the board, we've seen point changes across a lot of units, and you can definitely feel, looking at it, that GW are doing their best to sort of point us in a direction of more balanced play. As you've probably heard from previous videos I've done, it seems like, and it definitely feels like Guard is still an army where you sit still with your indirect units and just blast your opponent to bits. And then I use Sentinel spam, multiple waves of Sentinels, recovered through the reinforcement stratagem just to have endless waves. Was it winning me games? Some. Is it tournament winning? Absolutely not. But it feels like they're trying to push us in back more of a balanced direction, which is good. Yeah. Now, as we look at some of these changes straight off the bat, Tank Command is down to 205. This is great. 240 was just ridiculous. And then, given you can choose any of the weapons, there was actually like a massive opportunity cost loss, and it's still there. But the point was like, I think a Tank Commander is 240. Previously, a Demolisher Siege Cannon was 220, so a 20 point premium. And then if you took the weakest weapon profile, say for example a Vanquisher, the point differential was so big that you had to take the best units. So the Tank Commander is at 205, and spoiler alert, the Demolisher Siege Cannon Lim and Russ is 200 points, so a 5 point premium for it to be able to give an additional order. That feels very good. So this feels very fairly costed. Now, it's 205, a good point value. It definitely feels better, and I don't know how much these cost in ninth now, but it's feeling much better. But I still don't think this is enough to like revolutionize us. Still, personally, I'm just going to bring Lord Solar, because the Tank Commander, 205 points, a lot of points. It's a character, it's bring it down. You can get that combination in the same hand potentially. Just to give one more order, 12 inches away, yeah, just bring Lord Solar. But we can't complain. Yeah, 35 point reduction, 15% overall, very good. Okay, Gaunt's Ghosts. This is great. 150 and 100 points. They are definitely going to be very, very viable now. They already were quite viable. I'm starting to paint mine after owning them for about 9 months, just cracked around the sprue. So 100 points for a hyper slippery, super low level DACA unit, which can do some very good mission play. They're actually pretty decent now, absolutely. Now, Strachan, and you can see his mate Sly Marbo, and if we then scroll around as a Harker, all the Catachan heroes have had a glow up, which is fantastic. So Harker at 55 points, he is the same now, I believe, as Asada Creed. He's a bit more expensive than Acadian Custom, which he should be. 55 points, old Stabber Boy, that's great now, because he's got a 4+ invul save, I believe. He's got all the wounds, he's tougher, he's shootier, stabbier. He's good now. That feels really good. Sly Marbo, my favourite character, 65 points. I would still play him at 75 points. He has got all the mission play, similar degree obviously to Gaunt's Ghost. He can fit in sneaker places because he's one dude. Regimental keywords, he can be very, very cheeky and bring him back because he's not attached to anything as per the ruling and the wording in that stratagem. So at 65 points, he's definitely staying in my list. And then, you know, Strachan, yep, cool. You could bring him. He's a bit more stabby, and also Gaunt's Ghost looking good. Okay, that's wrong. It should be 0 and all that. But yeah, as I said, Sergeant Harker, 60 points. He was stupidly overcosted. So 40 points down. Yeah, if you are going to bring Catachan Jungle Fighters, which it can be attached to, there's merit there. So he's definitely feeling more affordable. Yeah, Acadian Castellan down 5. Cool. It puts a lot more of a differential between him or her and Asala Creed, and Commissar's down to 30. Cool. Okay, so you know it does feel like looking at the headquarter units, and I've grouped them by that type of thought process. They've picked out certain things and tried to make us play more of it, which I think is good. It's definitely good. Okay, another one which is called as Not Dead Dog is now 60 points. 70 here was just, I don't know why you'd ever use him, but 60 points he definitely feels better. I still don't know if there's a role for Bulgrim for bodyguards, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but they basically give your character they're protecting a feel no pain. Now that is nowhere near as good as what it was in Ninth, where they just took all the wounds, obviously, but still 60 points is better than 70, so that's good to see. Okay, now on to our troop choices, or aka battle line units, and you can see across the 4 of them there's been a bit of change. So firstly, obviously, Caddy and Shock infantry squads have no change. Cool. And Kadich and Jungle Fighters have dropped by 5 points to 55 points. Now, does this make them fieldable? I don't think so. If they're down at 50 points, yes. Pre-game move of 6 inches. They got that rubbish sort of ability when they charge. They can do a bit more stabbiness. But even then, 55 points, they don't compare to Caddy and Shock with 2 special weapons and objective sticky, or the infantry squad with the heavy weapon team. So great, they got a bit cheaper, but 55 is not enough to make them groundbreaking. Now, Def Corps got an extra 5 points. They've gone up by 5, probably because people are taking big blocks of 20. They have the Def Corps Marshal, they have the Med Pack, they've got the Fix Up Feel No Pain from the Command Squad. They can be quite resilient. But the thing, as I go back to what I showed you earlier, like the win rates here, is that like you could be quite negative here and say, why is anything going up in an army which actually is not doing great? If we go back to the actual, what I call the official win rates, which they're not probably, like why would anything go up in an army which is not doing great? I mean, I don't know. I don't think they didn't have to go up. Why did they go up? We're not winning. No, like I check all the tournament reports and we're not winning any tournaments. We've come in like I think I've seen 1 or 2 like 3rd and 4th placements. Which is amazing by those individuals, but we're not killing it. So why they went up, I don't know. All right, back onto positives. Chimeras down by 15 to 70. Great. That definitely brings back the idea of, I'm probably going to try it again on Monday against Adam, who plays Black Templars. At least 2 Chimeras with some Caddy and Shock inside for a bit of just objective play and getting some roadblocks. So great to see, obviously. Now some other more targeted ones. Attilan Rough Riders, who used to be an absolute glass cannon, now are maybe a bit of glass. No cannon, 70 points. Would you play them? I don't know. If they were 60 points, I would, but their damage output isn't as good as it used to be, and given their cavalry, they get stuck behind things, and they're made of paper. They just disappear against anything which shoots at them. Cool, okay. Now to some more serious business, and I'm pretty sure I got this right, but the Baneblade has dropped 90 points from 540 to 450. Now, I'm not going to double check it on the live in front of you, but 540 is ridiculous. Yeah, tell me if I got this wrong, because that feels way too high. But either way, the Baneblade with its main weapon is 3d6 shots. Anything which is simply d6 is totally terrible because the variability just ruins the stats. But if it was the most, I'm going to have to double check this after, but if it was the most expensive before, very expensive, dropping it to 450 is great. Okay, let's not debate that. That's huge. Now, are our Titanic units playable? I've actually personally played it. I've again seen in a tournament report some dude took like 3 Titanic things and just tabled people. Again, situationally based. If you come up against something hyper shooter, you get destroyed. But 450 feels very stomachable compared to 540. Now, then you can see the Bane Sword. I don't know what the weapons. I'm not going to embarrass myself getting them all wrong, but 480. Okay, that's good. Bulgrams from 90 to 80. Great. They're definitely. I think they're actually a bit of a sleeper unit. They've got the -1 damage. They've got the Feel No Pain. They've got an invul save. So 80 points for 4. I think it is now. I'm going to embarrass myself. Feels good. Yeah, it feels very good. Okay, next on to a bit of a tier moment for me is the Earthshaker carriage battery. So I've got 3 on order from China, and over the course of pressing order and then being delivered, because they take ages to be delivered from China, they've gone up by 50%. That's nice. So that's what happens when you chase the meta, is the unit you buy gets nerfed to the ground. So, I mean, 80 points was ridiculous before. They were too cheap. And this is a bit frustrating for me because I made a decision based on that. This happened to other people as well, and then suddenly the unit you focus on has just been nerfed. So, are they nerfed? 120 points. And the thing is, I'm not covering anything which hasn't had a point change, but 120 points versus the Basilisk, which stay the same, at 135 points, is the point differential enough to really sort of warrant if you haven't, buying the unit, either be it recast or from Forge or Direct, versus a unit which is a vehicle which is inherently tougher. It's got a bigger move, it's got Hunter Killer Missile, it's got Heavy Bolter, Heavy Flamer, versus a unit which is fundamentally just the cannon itself, because the crew do nothing, they just count as wounds. And plus this hits organically on 4s if it keeps still versus 3s. So is the point differential enough to to take 3 Basilisk versus 3 Earthshaker Carriage batteries? I mean, you're going to say 45 points across 3, 30 points across 2. Yeah, so I'm personally quite bummed that this has happened, but that's not really chasing the meta. And for the game, again, it's good for the game, because to just have an army like ours which just focuses on indirect fire is not fun to play against. But with that being said, if they truly wanted us to not just play indirect fire units, here there should have been a ruling which said Astra Militarum, Born Soldiers applies always, like it did in the back end of 9th. Yeah, so it doesn't matter if you move, if you remain stationary, if it's in your opponent phase and your phase, you receive the 6 critical hits, the critical wounds, whatever it is. I'm going to embarrass myself from that. That would have changed the way we play. And it would have been one line in our index, job done. If all the points remain the same and they just change that, I would have been, cool, I'm going to start playing other units. And this is the thing, as I said, as I go back to my statistical analysis, is that if the core rule of an army is dirt, which ours arguably is, and you just change the points, that means the way you play the game overall isn't going to change much, because you're going to basically be debating, do I keep my Rogel Dawn or my Baneblade still and just shoot and have better accuracy or more damage, or actually move it and play the game? We'll see. We'll see. Okay, next along in there's been a lot of stuff which dropped. We're going to the main course here, but Hellhammer dropped it by 60. It definitely needed it because I don't think it's even that good. Kazrakan, great to see, they dropped to 100. They're definitely not what they were, obviously, the back end of 9th with all their mortal wounds. So that's good to see them being actively dropped. So 10 points per unit per model feels good. I don't play them, but it feels alright. But then on to the serious business is a Lemon Rust. So as you all know, these were so overcosted. They made them just garbage. Now across the board, you can see they've all been dropped, which is fantastic. And there's some pretty big drops. If you look at the percentage wise, the Vanquisher dropped by 35 to 155. That feels very good. To be honest, at 155, you could bring a couple of these, maybe even 3. And just the fact that they've got all the DACA from the sponsons, the front sponson, the stubber, the hunter killer missile, they're decent now, I feel. And their one-shot cannon, it is strength 16 or 14, it's AP4, it's D6 plus 6 damage. It could one-shot other vehicles and absolutely nail individual models by themselves. AP4, not to be scoffed at. So 155 points. I feel very, very good now. Punisher, 160, cool. I mean, yeah, it's Gatling Cannon, yippee. One of you commented, it was quite funny actually, in a post I said that the Eradicator will always be dirt. That's the laws of the universe, and it's 160, strength 7, AP1, flat 2 damage. It's still dirt. But I guess the Executioner, the Exterminator, they've always got legs, and they're actually obviously point costed the same as the Lemon Rust battle tank. So 180 points for these feels a lot more manageable. I'm definitely not confident that you would play you can. I know one of my subscribers, my patrons, does play armored lists, but still this is not enough to really spam them. I mean, if they were back to 165, what they were in the back end of 9th edition, would be very, very good. But we can't complain. They've come down in cost, some quite dramatically, particularly probably what you could argue are sort of the less good of the bunch. But potentially where I'm probably got the most hope is the Demolisher, because 220 was just unfathomable. 200 feels decent now. And as we look at the Rogel Dawn in a second, this does feel better. And the Demolisher switch can actually will punish people. It's strength 14, AP3, D6 damage, and you can shoot into combat with no hindrance, and you can fire the Demolisher into combat. So, 200 points, 2 of these in a list, which I'm going to try on Monday, definitely feels better now. I think 220 was ridiculous, 200 feels better. So, I mean, across the board, Executioner is a yes from me. It's now better cost. Eradicator, Nova Cannon's a no. The autocannon version for the additional AP pip is always very good. But the Lemon Rust still, I mean, strength, is at 10, AP1, 3 damage. AP1 really sucks the life out of it. But broadly speaking, this is obviously fantastic. Yeah, I mean, they've given some and they've taken away some, obviously. We'll look at the Manticore in a second. It's got more expensive. They've made an active effort to make us play less indirect. But for that, we've now got a heap of cheaper headquarter units, which is great, and also Leman Russes, which is a staple of any guard sort of methodology of war. It's great to see. Okay, who else? Anybody else? So here we go, the Manticore, 125 to 150. Yeah, this is now quite expensive. D6 plus 1 shots for me personally always very disappointing. Always just flunked it and rolled like 3 or 2 even. You know, so 150 is getting to the point where it's like, nah. But I mean, you can still bring three of these. You're still going to do work. Obviously, the Scout Sentinels kept out, and there's a bit of a change there when we come to it. Also, the Medusa battery, which was basically a mini demolisher siege cannon with a 36-inch range, has gone up as well to 110. Like, funny they didn't nerf it as hard as they nerfed the Earthshaker Carriage battery, but it's gone up. Okay, some more positives. So obviously, Bulgrams, they've gone down. They're not as good, I believe, as the Ogren brothers, but great to see they've gone down. Interesting, the laser destroyer battery, the rapier battery, which you can't actually buy I think you got to buy a Space Marine version from Forge. Well, it's gone up by 5 points. Cool, but again, why would they increase the cost of all these obscure units? Like, I don't know, maybe they saw on a tournament winning list some dude bought like 9 of them because you can bring in squadrons of 3, and because they've got the regimental kit where they can be reinforced back for forever, they just thought, okay, let's just bump them up, but whatever. Ratlings, 70 to 60, great, cool. Rogal Dawn down to 260. I mean, is it enough to make it playable? I don't know. It's just, yeah, I don't know. It's obviously better, yeah, but it's not enough. Like Leman Russ is overall enough to make you like, right, bring just that's the focus unit for the army. Now, a disappointing one is the Scout Sentinels from 50 to 60. The Armored Sentinels remain at 70. Did I get that right? Armored Sentinels, yeah, remain at 70. So, again, why these have gone up, I don't know. But I mean, it's extra 10 points, fine, 20% increase. I mean, it probably is very targeted because you just bring 3 by 3 of these, reinforce them all game long. I did in a tournament a couple of weeks ago. You end up bringing back tons of extra points, obviously. But yeah, I mean, the Scout Sentinel 60 points is still very good. It's a relatively tough chassis. It's got enough wounds, 7 wounds, toughness 7, 3+ save to be annoying. Fine, but again, as I go back to what I said before, why anything got expensive for us, I don't know. Okay, Storm Sword, I believe it's got a big boy blasts. Went down by 25 points, 5%, cool. Another one which is just weird is Tarantula batteries. Why they went up? Okay, whatever. Scions went down. Okay, you've got to take some, you've got to give some, and arguably Scions have got more play than Tarantula batteries because they've got an OC value of 0 and they keep still all game. So that's encouraging. Scions got cheaper. Another one I don't understand, Thunderbolt's gone up by 10. Why? I don't know. Well, maybe it's because, you know, they just think like if one goes up, one must go down. So the Valkyrie's gone down. Okay, you know, the Thunderbolt's gone up and that's gone down. So that's it. So overall, we can't complain. You know, like we got a lot of point changes, all down. We got a couple which went up, and the ones that went up, arguably, besides Deathcore dudes, the Earthshaker Cage battery and some other odd ones, you know, and the Manticore, like the majority of them actually are Forge Ward units. The majority, Scout Sentinels going up fine, but as I said, you know, the fact our army rule didn't change worries me. And again, having listened to other YouTubers talk about other armies, some other armies feel like they've got a massive boost. So it's like the classic case of in the universe where, you know, we've gone up a little bit, but everyone else, some have gone down. So like Eldaria probably come down, we're still beneath them. If other armies have gone beneath us and gone way up above us, we're probably going to find ourselves towards the bottom end again. So, I mean, overall, this is echoed by everyone on YouTube, and overall is that this is very good to see the effort that's gone into, if we go back to the balanced data slate, actually, you know, targeted changes, getting this out on time for one, which is great. All the point changes across the board. It's good for the game. Will this really help Guard be a very powerful army? I'm not convinced. And please prove me wrong, because I'm only one player. I play once a week at best, so I'm not the best player out there. But yeah, so hopefully this was interesting to see all the point costs laid out like this, and a bit of a discussion about the overall state of things, and a bit of a statistical analysis or thought process behind the decision-making process they would do when making changes to the army points. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. Comments, questions, feedback, as always in the comments. I love to hear from you because I learn from you. And as always, if you want to support me, you can just have a like, comment, or by subscribing, joining my Patreon platoon, or simply watching any of my YouTube videos, which I cover tactics like this, the hobby aspect, or also lore as well. A massive thanks to all my supporters and Patreons. Let's get your bayonet sharp, let's go oiled. Faith from the Emperor strong. Patreon platoon, sound off.
Tank Commander Glenn. Tank Commander Watchdog Van Etten. Tank Commander Mitchell. Colour Sergeant DuPont. Sergeants Adal, the Colonel Merrill. Veteran Gibson, Hall, Lundeen. Guardsman Beard, Coquelin, Flint, Hills, Malik, Nitton, Nguyen, Smith, Tom, Tompkin. Conscript England, Gilliam, Goodwin.